3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm Angie.
And I'm Jamie.
Mental health is important.
And sometimes even the best therapists lose their shit.
Like the shit show. The
Shrink show. You pronounced it wrong. Tune on in and listen to Angie's Shrink Show of a Life because I'm perfect.
Listen to our podcast, okay? You'll like it with therapists.
Coping skills. Shh.
Hi, friends. Hi. We have a super wonderful guest with a fucking crazy story.
Holy shit. You, as Jamie says, you need to strap on.
Yes, strap on, everybody.
Because
there are some twists, there are some turns, and there are a lot of questions about how our legal system works.
And just a lot of goosebump moments of synchronicity and just like, wow, humans are so magical and powerful and can withstand some really fucked up situations.
Right. Our guest today was Janessa Finley-Ford, and she has an incredible personal story about how she went from working in the criminal justice to
Marrying a felon.
Being married to a felon.
Yeah.
And it's not for reasons why you would think.
Exactly. It's not at all what you would think, which is the magic within this story. Mm-hmm. So seriously, strap on, folks. You're about to go on a ride.
Mine's about to be blown. As usual, thanks for listening. Thanks for all the like, rates, and subscribes. We're here every Wednesday.
We love you so much. Listen up.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
We can do it. Yeah.
So let's start in the womb.
3 lives ago and work our way forward.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. Definitely. I think my partner and I had a soul contract, and here we are rocking that shit in a really awesome way.
Oh my God, I love this so much already. Okay. It's like a movie. Go ahead. Give us your lifetime movie.
All right.
Start.
So you want just to dive into the story? You want introduction? Just the story. Let's go for it. All right. So my wild, crazy, amazing, awesome story is how I went from supervising felons to marrying one. And it is a story that doesn't typically go quite the way people would guess or think. So I'll start with just a little bit of background information about myself. I love to share that I grew up on, this traditional Nebraska farm, Northeast Nebraska, 5th generation in our family, raised on the farmstead, like cows, pigs, corn, rye, like did the thing, right? All the animals. And I went to a one-room country school for the first couple years, like preschool, kindergarten-ish couple years. So first grade was the first year of education I had in a public school system, or a town school, I guess I should say, because even the country school was public technically. But the one-room schoolhouse, I had no other classmates. I was the youngest of 7 students. So baby in my family, baby at the school, it was such a cool experience and not the traditional education that we know. So from there, I went, off to college, got my degree, criminal justice, psychology, and then started really that career in the prison system in Omaha. So a little bit different than cows and corn, a little different culture. And from the prison, while I was at the prison, I was the first female assistant team lead on the emergency response team, which was like the riot suppression business. And then I went from the prison caseworker position to North Omaha, and I worked as an intensive supervision probation officer. These days, that position is called something different, but really it was working with felons, high risk of reoffense, and it was their last chance before prison. Lots of underlying drug addiction issues that led to the charges that they had. Then I moved to Norfolk, Nebraska. Like, I can't get out of Nebraska, right? Just a tour around Nebraska. And I worked there as the drug court coordinator and supporting addicts still in this really cool non-adversarial approach to crime and rehabilitation. And I served as a liaison between the judges, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys, the captain of the state patrol, the chief of police, the treatment providers. So really a cool and unique situation all around in that drug court. It was also very close to closing down when I got there. This is a little bit relevant, a little bit of a sidebar. Relevant for later though, the prosecutor wasn't putting anyone into the program because they wanted due process. Like due process is, you know, the rights afforded to defendants. So when a prosecutor is passionate about that, you take pause for a moment and take notice. And what was happening was the defendants had to plead guilty to enter into drug court to have the opportunity for their charge to be dismissed at the end of the program. But if they failed the program, they automatically went to sentencing. There was no burden on the state or the drug court system to prove that they had actually violated the terms of the program. And so that's really what the defense was wanting, and also the prosecutor was passionate about that too. So we made some changes, some procedural changes, and kind of mirrored it to probation with a violation of probation hearing. Did something similar there for drug court, and everything was happy that drug court is thriving these days. It is so cool and awesome to see. And then my dream, I thought it was my dream of all dreams, and it's so cool how we grow and then we have a new dream. But at the time, my dream was to work in the federal system. And I tried to get into federal probation in a lot of different places. And a friend of mine said, hey, the Department of Homeland Security is hiring. Just put your application in. You can transfer where you want. Once you get in, it's a lot easier to move around. Just come, you know, get started, get your foot in the door. So I put in the application. I ended up getting hired several months later, moved to Lincoln, Nebraska, in my tour of Nebraska, and here we are. So it's a decade later. I'm still here in Lincoln, and that's a little bit of my background, my professional background that led me to, you know, the story of my significant other. So Valentine's Day of all days, 2022, sitting at my kitchen table, minding my business, doing my work, as a car drives by. I just had that feeling like this car does not belong. And no real reason to think that. It's a black little SUV. And put my head back down, and then I see the car come back the other way just seconds later, and it looks like it's slowing down. So I moved to my windows in the living room, and I can see this individual taking pictures toward my house. I'm like, So, you know, February 14th in Nebraska, it's not warm, but who needs a coat? Who needs shoes? Not me. Like, let's just go see what's going on out there. So I go outside, and my neighbor's house was for sale. There was a for sale sign in the lot. Like, it was already under contract, and you know how they leave the for sale sign up until everything, like inspections and all of that. So there was a for sale sign over there, but technically the house was not for sale. And I saw this person, like, do I roll down my window? Do I put it in drive? What am I doing? And they rolled down their window, and I was like, hi, you know, pardon my outfit that does not match. I've been working since like 6 a.m. Didn't think I would see like the light of outside today, but here we are.
Pardon my heart boxers.
Yeah, I had sweats on, thank goodness, because it's cold, but definitely not looking like a classy lady. And so, yeah, I politely asked if they minded telling me what they were taking pictures of. And they said that they and their significant other were from out of town. They were looking to buy a house. They just wanted to make sure the pictures online looked like the neighborhood, like not the house that's for sale, the neighborhood. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
No.
Lie.
No.
Come on. Come up with a better lie.
I agree. Like, practice cover stories. I mean, I'm sure there's training on that, but also, like, I don't know. I've never been put in that position. So I'm not sure how well I would do under pressure either. I'll just own that.
Also, I'm not gonna lie, I have been that asshole that has taken pictures, but it was when I was trying to landscape. And I'm like, ooh, I really like that, and I really like that. I was fully prepared for somebody to come out and be like, why are you taking a picture? I'm just, look, I'll show you. I just zoomed in at your bushes. I just really like your bushes.
Yeah, right? But you're also,
It would have been not in February.
No.
I really
still
like
gonna
your
work.
your
You
door
still could have
color.
made it work.
Yeah, I like your tree, whatever.
sure. And you're also like, okay, here, look, right? Like you already admitted, like, I'll be transparent. That was not happening in this situation. So we chatted up the housing market a little bit. It was very apparent this person, if they were looking for a house, like they maybe filled out their name on the loan form or something, but they had no idea what was happening in the market in general. So anyway, I go on my way, they go on their way. And I'm like, this is really, really odd. And then my significant other, so he and I had been together also, bring you to real time with that. We had been together for 4.5 years at that point in time. We had lived together for 3.5, 4 years at that time. And we were engaged. We had gotten engaged the previous September. So he was out of town for work. He had just started a new job. And he called me, hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe. I don't know. He called me later in the day, a little bit later, and said that he was contacted by an FBI agent. I'm like, oh, I'm sure that individual is here today, actually. Yep, taking some pictures of the house. What's up? So also a little bit of background information. There was a family member of his that he had had a falling out with. And that person had threatened his life a couple times. He called the cops to report it. The cops wouldn't take a report or do anything with it because while this individual said, I am going to kill you, they didn't say I have a gun, I'm on my way. Like the threshold of proving this threat was really, really, really high.
Yeah.
And so along with this whole situation, there had been some other criminal activity that had happened. And so it really wasn't outside the realm for us to just believe that my husband was being reached out to as a witness. And that was really all we could conceive, like I'm law abiding. I have a security clearance. I certainly haven't been breaking the law. He has, well, we both have like a speeding ticket on our record, nothing else. Like, I don't know what they would want to talk to you about. Do you know what they'd want to talk to you about? And, he like, no, I don't know what I would have done that would have been illegal. That would put me on the FBI radar. Like it really must be for this family member. And I'm a witness to something. And they had mentioned on the phone, whatever, some social media accounts and, whatever. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? What are you posting? And he's like, like, Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent, which had been flagged. His personal account, to be fully transparent, was never questioned in the case at all. It had been taken down by Instagram, deleted, whatever. And he had been suspended or put in Instagram jail on occasion for posting things like this meme that Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent. And then there were screenshots of the banner that it violated Instagram's violence policy, like a meme saying Kyle Rittenhouse is innocent is violent. So that was really what we knew about his, social media. So the next day he goes to the interview, no attorney. If I can give any advice, I'm not an attorney, but any advice to every American citizen out there, get an attorney if you're a witness or otherwise. It does not matter. And it does not mean that you're guilty of anything. It's your right. It is your right. Now, as I shared, my experience really is on the opposite end of the conviction process. And so this was not my zone of genius. And that was one thing I've really had to reconcile within myself, is that I should have told him to call an attorney, and also like, it's okay, I didn't. So yeah, he went to the interview. It was very clear at that time that he was a subject, a target of their investigation. There were 5 devices connected to an Instagram account that was not his. It was related to this family member, connected to this family member. And there were, like I said, 5 devices, only 1 were his. They being the FBI, didn't take any other devices that my husband owned at any point in time.
Can I ask really quick? Okay, and maybe you're leading up to it, so tell me to shut the fuck up if you're leading up to it. But what in the fuck? Why was the FBI even involved? What were they involved in? Like, what? Did you say this and I missed it? Because sometimes I listen, but I don't. No, I listen, but I'm thinking not anyway. But why was the FBI even fucking involved at all?
Well, I am telling the story like in my chronological because you're reflecting exactly what I lived through. Like this is for real, my reality too.
Okay, you know what? Keep going then. Keep going. I like as long as I know that there's the suspense, I'm all right with it.
She's freaking out.
I'm freaking out because I feel like I missed it. Like what the fuck? But I like it because I'm experiencing what you're experiencing. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. In addition to WTF, I also was like, when he came home from that interview and he said he was a suspect and he gave them his phone because he's like, let's just clear this up. Like, you can have everything. You can have my phone. Also, if you're listening out there, don't do that. Let him get a warrant. So he came home without his phone, whatever. And having the background I had, like, it is not conceivable for me or my belief system or the system that I worked in to make a mistake. So first of all, you're guilty. What did you actually do? Why are you lying to me? Lying isn't really a part of our relationship that we've ever dealt with. But okay, like, old dogs can learn new tricks. Maybe like this is the justification going on in my head. Like, huge trust, like canyon between the two of us. So he had to leave town to go back to work, to the project, to the training. And I was just so upset. I was traumatized, like the safety and security of my house. Like the FBI showed up at my house. Like they could do this at any time. And then I also, while I was working probation, had served a no-knock search warrant. I had worked with a FBI confidential informant, which led to my biggest bust that I ever made for drugs. So I've had some unique professional experiences along the way. And as you ladies know really well, when you're traumatized, there is not a darn thing in your mind that is rational. Nothing. So of course I'm like, oh my gosh, the FBI came here. They could come back at any time. They could come with a no-knock search warrant. I don't want my door knocked down. I don't want my drawers turned and dumped and strewn and spinning, right? And then I'm also like, can I work? Can I work if I'm potentially living with a felon? Can I safeguard our country? Can I do the thing? Is my security clearance going to get pulled? Am I going to be disciplined at work when this doesn't have anything to do with me? Like, what is happening? Am I losing all of my, like, everything? But the honesty, the truth in my relationship, my partnership, my job, my credibility, like, just like the runaway train, right?
Oh my God. Like, I can't even imagine just the questioning of everything. I mean, just what you described was literally every aspect of your world. My relationship, my job, his experience, like what is true, what isn't.
Safety.
Also, do I need to write a letter to the FBI to get better at telling stories? I don't know. Like what the fuck?
Suggestion box.
I mean, if it's the FBI, I'm sorry, I just have to digress a little bit. How can you not be better
At lying.
at lying?
At investigating.
Anyway,
Anyways, go on.
I'm sorry.
Well, there's also the personality structure of that. There are certain personalities that are really great at lying, and there are some that aren't. Like, I'm an Enneagram nerd, and that crap is so real. So
What's your number?
I'm a 1.
Oh, okay. I get along really well with ones. You're a 1, aren't you?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. I'm an 8 with a 7 wing, but anyway, we digress.
Yeah, I was picking up on that 8 vibe. And I would say, like, just energy wise, yes, like, we love burpees, so there's got to be some connection, but also maybe 9. I don't know. So that's just from an energetic read, though.
I'll take the test really quick when we're done with
I
it.
love this.
So, yeah, everything, question everything, lots of tears, lots of trauma, and alone time too, right? So he started this new job where he's traveling for a week, and this happens. And now also I'll just be alone, which may have been the best thing for us, honestly. But there was nothing comfortable happening in my world whatsoever. Also, at the time, I was a relationship coach. In addition, like, the great thing about my job was the flexibility. And so I started my business 4 years before, whatever, and I'm coaching. And so I'm like, well, like, look at my relationship just going to crap, but I'll coach people, sure. So, like, not only am I having imposter syndrome with my full-time job, also in my business, I'm like, well, what? Like, what am I doing? So yeah, so much spin out, so many needs for tools for calming the nervous system and anxiety and just processing trauma, processing emotions, processing fear, like, all of it. So real.
Can I ask really quick, like, what were some of those things that you used? Just kind of briefly, like, how did you get through that difficult time? Because I can only imagine at all of the big feelings you were feeling. I mean, how did you?
Yeah. So to play the story forward just slightly, we waited after this. I called the FBI. Don't do that either if you're listening. You might make yourself a witness. It was stupid, but I needed to know the things I couldn't find out at work. I thought I needed to know them, so I called them.
Yeah.
And then this was another point of mistrust because my significant other had asked me to stay out of it, and he left. And then a couple days later, I called, and there's a whole story around that. And if, like, people want the, like, down in the weeds version, I did blog the whole experience. You can read it. It's an incredible story, and it will, like, keep you going on and on to the next because it's just so magnetic and powerful. But when I called, that's a story in and of itself. There was no rapport. I was, I asked for transparency, and there was more than one person on the call. They didn't disclose that, just like constant eroding of any faith in what was happening. And they constantly asked me too, once I finished with my questions and they were asking theirs, they constantly asked me if I'd ever been threatened by him. It was like 4 times within maybe 20 minutes. So it was like every 5 minutes we're looping around to this question. Like, I'm not giving you the question or the answer that you want to your question. Maybe this is a DV situation, and because of the domestic violence and all of that, I'm not being honest. Like, it's none of that. I mean, I finally got to the point where I was like, with all due respect, I had a laundry list of questions, and I was very intentional that I did not ask you if, based upon what you knew and I did not, that I was in harm. Because I'm not in harm. Like, there is no harm here. I don't even want to plant that seed of doubt for you. So I'm not even asking you about what you know that I don't. So anyway, had that call, incredible and amazing. And then we waited about, I don't know, 3 months, whatever. It was the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. So essentially 1 year ago right now. Mm-hmm. He got a phone call from the FBI agent.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. He got a phone call from the FBI agent and a letter saying that he was a target and they were charging him. And he had 3 business days over a holiday weekend to find an attorney and respond to the situation. That letter had been executed 4.5 weeks prior, but just never delivered to him. Also, the FBI agent went ahead and told him that they were being assigned to their next case and they were no longer working the case, which is also really unusual that a lead FBI agent wouldn't take a case to conviction. So don't know, like would love to be a fly on the wall and have a lot more information about that. But this is when things really got rocky as far as like, let's have a conversation about mental health and let's have a conversation about normalizing our mental wellness, having tools to deal with that when your life is falling apart and even when your life is not falling apart, for Pete's sake. So what happened over the course of the next few days was we got an attorney. The first attorney we called said that they were really sure it was a scam. And in my head, I'm like, I'm really sure it's not a scam. Like, I'm a Fed. He went to the federal building. We have not got the time or energy to convince you that this is not a scam. So next. Now, this goes back a little bit to your original question of like, what was going on? So the charge that he entered into a plea agreement for is threatening use of a telecommunication device. I don't remember the original charge. It was for 5 years in prison too, by the way. So no small thing. There's just so much. Sorry, sometimes it all just scrambles. My brain, I lose my words. It's just so much.
That's okay. You
So,
take your.
yeah, thank you. He got the target letter and get the attorney with very little time. And then the day after his attorney replies, I got a call from the FBI agent. That was no longer the lead. They were subpoenaing me as a witness, and I would need to testify against him. And if he didn't take a plea agreement. And then there was also the come meet with us beforehand to prep you. And I'm like, I don't believe I have to do that. I've had a lot of experience testifying. And they're like, you're right. You don't have to come meet us, but we would prefer it. You won't have any surprises and, yada, yada. So in my head, I'm like, I mean, I have truth and I've testified a whole lot. So, I mean, you can ask me whatever you want. I'm not going to be like off kilter because I just have the truth to share.
Why would you have to prepare me for something that I'm familiar with and if I'm only sharing the truth?
Yeah.
Right. So I got off the phone with them. I told them I would sleep on it and they followed up with the subpoena and, like, you really don't have a decision was the angle that they work. They're like, this day or this day works. Let us know which one you prefer. And I'm like, where's the option for none? Because that is also an option. But I thought we were all wanting truth and I thought we were all wanting justice. And so I thought I could help because I don't have all the evidence. I totally understand and own that. But I looked at everything that I had available to me. I went through his phone. I went through the evidence that they had sent to the defense attorney. I went through, like profiling this family member, their history, their involvements, their activities, their tech business that they had that they were evicted from, that closed, that they took money and product from people and didn't do the work. And then I looked at, the profile of my significant other who's educated and working and, all these things, whatever. I looked at the dates of the evidence and that some of those dates we didn't have cell phone reception. When we got engaged, we were in Utah, in Red Rocks, no cell phone reception. So I did choose to go. I shared these things with the prosecutors and the FBI agent that was there. And the shorter version of this is two things. First of all, I needed that experience to understand what the process was really truly like, because there was a paring down of what I was saying to end up at really a response that I felt like they wanted to have. And I had never experienced that before. And I didn't think that that's what this would be like. Like, there was no preparation of me other than telling me where I needed to be on Monday, at what time. They weren't like, do you feel comfortable testifying? Do you, like, there was no preparing. It was all gaining information to close the loopholes in their case, which was also the thing when they called me and told me that I needed to testify. I was mind blown. I'm like, you have forensic evidence. If this is a tech crime, should be a closed case. Like, why do you need a character witness? I don't get it. Oh, there's four other devices. Do we know? Like, we don't know if they've ever found those 4 other devices or done anything with that.
Also, I just want to highlight for our audience, this was 1 year ago. 1 fucking year ago. Like, as you're talking, I just think about how often people who aren't as educated as you, who aren't as familiar as you are with the inner workings, are
The legal system.
yeah, like how often they are tricked and bamboozled and convinced, and it leaves a nasty taste in my mouth. The fact that this was just a year ago with you, somebody who is highly educated, somebody who literally worked within that sector and still were taken advantage of and attempted to be tricked in ways that, oh my God, like, and how often would we chalk up, oh, it's just mental illness. Like they're just looking at the house, you know, like if you're talking to your friends or whatever, like it's just, there's so many issues for people who just don't have the wherewithal just within this story. Oh my God. Anyway.
Yeah. And I feel like I didn't have the wherewithal, even within this story, having all the tools that I have, and I have so many more than the average person, both from a legal standpoint, both from an emotional processing, psychology, understanding the psyche, what's happening to us in real time, and tools to get through that. So at this point, really don't have the resources to fight it. And attorney believes that my significant other will get probation if he takes the plea agreement. I get home from this interview that was like mind-blowing and life-changing, and like they didn't care about really anything that I shared. When I shared about the profiles and different circumstances of this family member, they wanted to know how I knew. Like, don't worry, it's not because I tippity typed on the systems at work. Like, I have sources and I'm not completely oblivious to what's happening in my world around me. So it just also the way they responded to me was odd and off. And so I also, in closing at that interview, asked the prosecutor about due process and asked, how is it like due process to give someone 3 days to respond to a target letter to get an attorney? And Travis, my significant other, asked for more time. He got like a day, you know, whatever, it was minuscule. And the prosecutor's response to me was that they push cases through faster than this. And in the moment, my mind was reeling. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, like we had one case, I think we signed it through in 1 day, you know, whatever. But then when I got a little space from it and objectivity, I'm like, pushing a case through is not justice.
No.
And also in the defense attorneys I've talked to since then, finally spoke to someone who had been a federal prosecutor and is now a defense attorney. And he explained to me, there is no due process on target letters. Some people don't get them. They just get arrested and hauled off to jail. So the fact that we had one was really a privilege. And then my mind went to, why didn't the prosecutor tell me that? Why would he tell me that he's pushed cases through faster if there is no due process? And I'm asking you about due process. Do you not know that? Like, is this just the way you operate and work? So you're justifying your behavior or your choices or the process? This is very bizarre.
Why is getting a letter a fucking privilege? Why is me defending my own rights a fucking privilege?
Right. It should be our right. Like, that's what they say, right? But I am no less innocent in this matter because I believed him to be guilty right away too. Like, it was through looking at the things that when I dug into what they had sent the defense attorney, what was on Travis's phone, that's when I was like, okay, he doesn't lie to me, and this seems to reinforce what he's saying. That is when I really, really pivoted and locked in that like I'm remiss, and maybe our system we're taught that you're innocent until you're proven guilty, but is that what we default programming think? Like when we watch true crime shows, is everyone guilty until they tell you the one occasional case isn't? I mean, also digging into stats, it was because of this, I looked at the stats, and there are 20% of wrongfully accused behind bars. That is not people pressured into plea agreements. Those are people with exoneration evidence. So you know that number is even higher than that. Those are just the ones that the cases can be proven. 20%, that are so many lives ruined. So many lives ruined by oopsie.
That's 1 out of every 5 people.
Mhm.
I mean, that's staggering.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's insane.
It is. Absolutely agree.
And we are brought up, like you said, we're brought up to believe, because we are taught in the judicial system and that it's just and it's fair. And you want so much to trust in that and believe in that. And that so much so that you will question your partner that you have been intimate with more than you will the government.
Exactly.
What?
Yeah, also what I went through, a whole lot of brain matter splattered a lot of different places through this.
Because I would do the same thing. Honestly, I would question my partner, because it's so much easier to question our own judgment than it is to question authoritative judgment.
Mhm.
Why? It should be the opposite. It should be completely flipped. I'm just really excited that you're sharing this, and I'm so into this. Keep going.
Okay. So this is where things get really messy from a mental health standpoint. My significant other chose to take the plea agreement. Like I said, he thought he would get probation. And really, do we have the resources to drag this out in court, to hire, like we're told, you know, multiple 5 figures to get a forensic analyst, specialist to go through his phone to prove that these threats and comments that were made to politicians didn't actually come from his phone. His phone had been, like, there is an iCloud account that wasn't his, that he had sent messages out to people, and I can't remember what the ending was. It was like greetings and salutations or something like that. It wasn't actually that, but like, this man does not talk like that. And so his family and friends were like, hey, you need to change your password. And he's like, I don't even have an iCloud account. But there was an iCloud account with Travis, whatever, that was sending people in his contacts. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't know why it's working this way. And that wasn't just the iCloud. It was in some of his, there was like a Travis at Gmail account too, that supposedly was his, but isn't. And like, how common is the name Travis? Like, who knows who set this up? So anyway, really weird activity on his phone. Really, really weird activity on his phone during the same time period and before. So that's a little like factual basis of the case and the nuts and bolts of the crime that's being prosecuted. Now, to talk about earlier question of like, what is the FBI doing? The year previous, in July of 2021, an FBI task force was set up to prosecute, investigate. They don't do the prosecution, but you know, it gets there via them. Individuals for violence against political officials that run elections. So not elected, like elected officials gets thrown around a lot within the crime world. This is election officials. So I just really want to make that clear, that it was protection of these election officials. So one of the comments, 2 of the comments, I guess, out of like the 17 different comments that they had, 2 of them were made to an election official in the state of Colorado. And that is what they ended up in the plea agreement charging him with. Even though in court, they held him accountable for all of the comments and brought those up on record. That's a story for another day. And that also in February of 2022, if I remember my dates and research correctly, the guidelines had been changed for election officials to hold a greater sentence for those charges and crimes than elected officials. So even though there were comments made towards the President of the United States and Nancy Pelosi and Mark Zuckerberg, they charged him with the individual that had the most sentence, right? So he enters into the plea agreement, and he came home. I didn't go to that hearing. He came home and he hit the knees of our bedroom, and he said, you know, the worst lie I've ever told about myself just made me a felon, and I could go to prison for it. And the shattering, the fragmenting of the psyche that happens in these major traumas, like, it was very clear, like, that was the moment for him when he shattered. And he was very near self-harm. Like, he wouldn't outright tell me, like, if I asked him, are you suicidal? He would say no. But he would make comments like, I don't know how far away that would be. I don't want to be left at home alone. So, like, when I had appointments with clients, I got a friend to be with him, so that he wouldn't have time alone, and utilizing some of those safety measures, mechanisms, and support. We had all sorts of PTSD, both of us, sleeping with a light on. He would wake up with panic attacks in the middle of the night. I think both of us I know for me, it was 11 and a half months. The first night, I will always remember the first full night of sleep I had. It was our 1 month wedding anniversary. And I joked that I think he sent me a gift because I finally slept through the whole night, not just a couple hours. So for sure, you know, the anxiety, paranoia. Oh my gosh, there's so much paranoia in a situation like this. Feeling like somebody's out to get you, and it's just crazy. So the tools that were used, you know, I'm trained in energy psychology, and really, like, significant trauma, not just like small t trauma, but major trauma, the abuse, you know, those neglect, the bigger traumas that really, really shift our whole reality of how we see the world and ourselves. And so definitely use those resources. I utilized crystal healing because in his plea agreement, there were a whole bunch of conditions, but there were 3 particular conditions that either changed how I would have liked to move forward or really limit, and I question why this is even so. But one of them was to never deny guilt while the case was pending. So we felt like we couldn't talk about it because we couldn't tell our truth, because if we did, it might be interpreted as guilt. And if that plea agreement was pulled, he would be facing 5 years in prison. So whether that fear was real or one that we created in our own head, I knew I couldn't live with myself at night if I had done anything to get his plea agreement pulled by the prosecution. He can never have the evidence used against him, even with a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, which is really weird. Like, what do you have to hide? Why wouldn't the evidence, like, just be transparent and out there on the table? And there's a past prosecutor that wrote a book that said, like, I would never encourage anyone to enter into a plea agreement where that is the case or required. And I feel like that all that screams is that they've done something that they shouldn't have, or that's illegal, and they want to cover it up and hide it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But, you know, like, once you start reading these things and seeing them, you ask even more questions. And then he also had to waive his appeal rights, so he can never appeal. So because of, like, we can't talk about it, I was really, really hesitant about what can I do to help myself. So for sure, using the tools that I have, the tapping, breath work, you know, journaling, the energy psychology modality, the eye movement, desensitization, I feel I am statements with the eye movement. Like there's a lot of tools mixed in there. I also worked with another energy practitioner. And again, like, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you struggling with? We never ever talked about my significant others being prosecuted. Like for the first 3 or 4 months we worked together, she didn't actually know what was going on in my life, but she could alleviate and shift the energy that shifted my mindset, that calmed my nervous system. And so like, it's really unfortunate that these tools aren't supported by insurance because they work so well and people don't have to relive the trauma. Like it was because of those tools I can sit here and talk about this story and I'm not re-traumatized. I'm not crying. I'm not reliving the trauma. It was an experience I'm reflecting upon, and hell yes, it's a lot. Like it's always going to be a lot. I think when I am 80 years old, I'm going to reflect on this. And sometimes we reflect on things and we're like, oh, that wasn't as bad as what I thought. This is going to be exactly as bad as I thought. Like it's not changing any of that, but I'm not living in the trauma, telling the story, which was such a blessing because this happens to way too many Americans. And because of the trauma, they can't speak out about it.
Well, and not only did you live through that trauma, but I guarantee you also were holding space for your partner, which that in and of itself is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes I think as healers and as helping professionals, we do hold that space for other people. But when you're like at the same time going through all of that trauma, it's very difficult. So the fact that you also couldn't talk about it, you couldn't express it, yet you found healing in these different modalities that insurance doesn't cover, just speaks, like you said, to the sheer power of those modalities and like their ability to truly help you work through things. Mm-hmm. We always think talking is the answer. No, it isn't. Like I tell people all the time, if you're crying and you have no idea, or if your kid's crying and they don't know, it doesn't matter. Nobody needs to fucking know. They're releasing energy. It doesn't matter. Right. You don't have to know. Unless you want to know, you don't have to. God,
1000%. Yeah. Why like dramatize and relive the stress, like the whole experience? It's not worth it. And yes, you're correct. I did a lot of healing work with my tools as well for my significant other, to move him out of that space of self-harm. And also like that was traumatizing for me. I have mental health in my family. So as a kid, I saw some different symptoms of mental health, somewhat similar to that. And so just seeing him like fall apart and not sure that he wanted to keep living was traumatizing for me. Like there's just more layers of trauma than what can be accounted for through all of this. So yeah, there was a lot of time and energy spent to, I like Humpty, I feel like Humpty Dumpty is always a nice little analogy because that happens with our psyche and then we have to rebuild it back up to, sit on the wall again, whatever, do life. But yeah, there is a lot of that going on. So in the meantime, after he entered his plea, it was within hours, the case broke on national news. He actually went through 2 cycles of national news coverage of his case. And of course, they don't tell you any of the details I've shared about how the case went, right? Like they just say, yep, he admitted to it. Yep, he's this like threatening, horrible, vile person. Yep, yep, yep. These are the comments. This is what he said. Yep, yep, yep. Here it is.
We caught the bad guy.
Yep. Like reputation ruined. His job previously had said they would keep him. They let him go 2 days later. So all of this was like blindsiding along the way, like as though everything else wasn't enough. Let's also have national news coverage. I expected that at the time of sentencing. I did not expect it because he was the first case of this task force. I expected it at sentencing. I didn't expect it at the plea. So while he couldn't work, he tried to get a job. No one's going to hire him, of course, because this case is pending and he could go to prison. He tried to get community service and he couldn't get community service because he didn't have a long enough rap sheet. He hadn't been in the criminal justice system long enough, and they wanted people with more experience being a criminal or dealing with the criminal system to volunteer. So he couldn't find a community service position to work either. So he had quite a bit of time. And in that, you know, they say it's these challenging times that really like you see the real of a person. And what I saw was really this kind, gracious, grateful, like he got fired from his job and he was so grateful for the job. He just loved it. He loved the people he worked with. He loved how challenging it was. Like he had only worked there for 3-4 months, loved it. So grateful. I wasn't grateful. Nope. That was not another blindsiding I wanted to deal with. Like, super not grateful. Like you said this and now you're changing course. Like I'm an Enneagram 1. We don't do flexible like that. Like there's some time for processing that needs to happen. Not grateful. But he was so grateful. And even when, you know, his tank is empty, he would check in with me. How are you doing? What do you need? A lot of times we didn't know what we needed. And a lot of times we also honestly couldn't be the one to provide it for the other person. But the fact just that like, hey, you're showing up and you care and you want to know and you're going to make sure that that need or whatever is met. You know, there would be not a ton of nights. There was a lot of sleepless nights, but there was one night in particular at 4 a.m. I woke him up. I was crying and I was devastated, you know, like reasonable response to everything that we're going through. And really dealing with the reality of like, what does this mean for my business? I'm spending a lot of time supporting him, which I would never go back and do anything differently ever again if I had to do it over. But yeah, I just felt despair about everything, like my dreams, my future, my stability. And he got up and came and just gave me a hug and sat in a chair in that room. I was in a different bedroom because I didn't want to wake him up. And just things like that, like you're getting no sleep, I'm getting no sleep, and you'll set up in the middle of the night because that's all that we have to give one another at this point. And like I felt so loved. You know, and before all of this happened, would have that been some dynamic that happened in our relationship? No. You know, like he might have been like, what's bothering you? What's going on? And then he would have went back to bed and I would have just dealt with it and worked it out. But just his presence was something different in a time when he didn't have much to give, you know? So all of the like, Houston, we have a problem, right? Like this was my mindset in the beginning. This is a big freaking problem that I never wanted. How dare you bring this into our household? Like the response was so shaming and like really made a lot of amends for that. But not how in hindsight, I wish I would have responded. And through just adjusting my mindset to a solution mindset, like not having an attachment that the solution would be the case would go away, but just where are solutions? The solutions I started seeing were examples like I gave in our relationship, and hardships that we had had in the past started dissolving. And it really, really, really recalibrated what is a problem, first of all. And a couple of my closest friends who were able to learn of this the soonest actually have mentioned that to me as well. In watching us go through this situation, what they view as an actual problem in their life and or their relationship is completely different. And so, you know, there's so much strength in our minds. And I think our mind is one of the greatest prison we'll ever be held captive of, because we can judge and label and it's bad and this is horrible and my life is crumbling. And that's exactly what will happen. Or it's a stripping away for a rebirth. And that was a big truth that I held, that I don't know how I'm going to come out the other side of this, but I am not going to allow this to make me a bitter person. I am not going to be hardened. I'm not going to be bristly and bitter and angry and just like begrudging for the rest of my life. Like, it's painful, but it's going to be painful either way. So crack me open, make me a more compassionate person, make me a more empowered person.
I've got the goosebumps all over my body because amen. Like that, God, you couldn't have summed that up better because you've been through a lot of shit and you're still going through that shit because he's in prison now. When did he go?
Yeah, so at his sentencing, which sentencing was scheduled for 3 weeks before midterm elections, also just really coincidental time. I don't believe in coincidences personally, but the first task force with the election, whole story, 2 national news cycles, and sentencing is 3 weeks before the election. Just throw those commonalities out there. So at sentencing, one place you never want to be in the criminal justice system is first in line, because there's no precedent case law to reference and you are it. So you have nothing to really tether yourself to say a court has done this before, and they will for sure sentence you to make an example so that the next cases that refer to yours, because you're the only one, will not be, lenient. So even though,
sorry to interrupt you, but that shit pisses me off so much because my husband and I were trying to get more time with our stepson. Not comparable, but they used the argument that they didn't have any case law that gave them an example. And my argument was, then be the case law, like be the person who sides with what is right so that somebody else has that as an example. Do the right thing, like be the example. What is this bullshit of I'm going to set a harsh example as a case law, or I'm going to make no decision whatsoever because there isn't any example? Well, somebody had to be brave enough to do that.
And he was facing up to 2 years in prison. So I'm sure in the eyes of the court, they were very kind because they sentenced him to 18 months instead of the full 2 years. So he had 90 days to self-surrender. He had to take himself to prison. He was not hauled away in court that day, which is also good because that was a whole nother shock. Like, I was definitely prepared for either way, but we didn't actually really think that he was going to go to prison. So that happened. And then we had 90 days to, sit around and think about it.
Yeah.
But we did have the holidays together. So, again, like looking at the blessings in the situation, we had the holidays together and our birthdays together. And our birthdays are back to back. Like if I had been born 19 minutes later, we'd share the same birthday. So
what?
There is
When's your birthday?
November 1st.
You're both Scorpio.
We are.
I'm a Scorpio.
Yes, woman.
Of course you're going through this bullshit, fucking Scorpios. You chose this life, you psychopaths.
Right. Yep. Wait, let's walk through some fire and see how we don't get burned while we're doing it, and then teach other people to do the same. It'll be a fun trick. Let's do it.
And then we're going to rebirth that shit. Look at you both. Okay, right. So you're both, you're November 1st. So is he
November 2nd?
Yep.
Okay, I was hopeful he was Halloween.
I always make this really lame joke that Halloween scared me out of my mom. I was a little bit overdue. So Halloween did it. No, we're both after Halloween. So. Did
you ever watch Bewitched?
No.
Oh. Well, then this story will be lost on you. But I'll share it anyway, and I'll cut this out. But my husband is one of 10 boys, and one of his brothers, the guy in Bewitched, it's the witch who like wiggles her nose like this. Anyway, his name was Darren Stevens, and the series I think started on Halloween. Also, it's Bewitched, right? Because people were spooked out by magical powers, whatever. Anyway, my mother-in-law had Darren Stevens, because my last name is Stevens, had her son, named him Darren. He was born on Halloween, and this was just before Bewitched came out, like almost simultaneously. So she got so fucking pissed because people would be like, did you name him Darren Stevens because he was born on Halloween because of Bewitched? And she's like, no. anyway, that's my sidetrack. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That would have been really lost on me. Living out in the farm, like we didn't have TV until I don't even know how old I was. And then I didn't have internet
have a
until
potty?
what?
Did you have porta potties?
Yeah, but it wasn't porta potty. It's an outhouse.
Did you
It's
have
still
an
there.
outhouse?
Yeah, for sure. For real. Yeah. Like
You
there's an
didn't have-
outhouse there.
You didn't have indoor plumbing?
We did, but we also still had the outhouse because at one point in time, 5 generations, there wasn't like that was an invention along the way. So the outhouse stayed. We only had 1 bathroom though. So sometimes did I need to use the outhouse? Sure. Yeah, that happened. Or I mean on a farm, like pop a squat, that happens too. Like
Yep.
you're just country.
Yeah. It's fine.
You can keep that part or edit it, whatever makes you happy. So yeah, we had our birthdays together, which was actually November was the hardest month for me in totality. Speaking of the signs and everything, the eclipse that happened on November 8th, I completely, like it was in both my sun and rising sign, and I ended up face down on the floor that day. And it took a little while to traverse that, but that was the most pivotal and impacting part of my
Journey.
transformation, really, like the releasing and the rebirthing. And they say that the dying process is painful and so is the birth process. And when you feel that in real time on an emotional scale, I agree. Yep.
I always think of the Matrix. Do you remember when Neo was reborn and he like woke up and did you see the Matrix?
I did, yes.
Remember when he woke up in like that pill in everything?
Yes.
Like to me that is really that awakening, that rebirth process of like, it's like almost like gasping for air and that like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
And just seeing everything with new eyes and feeling everything with a new body. And it's intense. And fuck, having to go through that again with a partner and with a timeline that is inevitable, coming, looming almost. Sounds intense.
When you start your birthday year, knowing that you're going to spend that year apart, like it was challenging to celebrate, but I always did look for the celebrations each day. But on the other side of this rebirth was the fact that I knew I was at choice to do whatever I was meant to do. And I had actually planned to quit my federal job in June. The Monday after Travis lost his job, I was going to submit my 2 weeks notice. So when he lost his job that Friday, I recalculated and recalibrated that plan. And all of the doubt of like, can I serve my country? I was like, yeah, actually I can. That doesn't change anything about how I do my job, how I've done my job, what I stand for, what my morals are, what my virtues are. And then from a coaching standpoint too, I'm like, I just have so much more to offer people. Like I just went through this intense, difficult situation that would tear most couples apart, and it strengthened our relationship. Like I have so much more to give, to serve, to guide people through with real life. And like, here's a demonstration. Like, this is not me just like teaching a principle. I applied it and this is the outcome of it. This is the result. So that other side of the rebirth has been incredibly empowering, not easy to get there. So January 11th of 2023.
111.
Yeah. I walked my husband into a prison, same steel doors, same click of the lock, all the noises I've always known he'd never heard before. I took his wedding ring that he couldn't have. Oh, we also decided to get married in December. We had not previously had a date. And then as all of this transpired, what that looked like changed and evolved a lot along the way. But we chose that it was really important to us to commit to one another, to exchange our vows, to have some part of our life be ours because of our choosing and not because of the circumstances that were happening around us. And in going through what we went through, the confidence of like, if we can get through this, we will get through anything life throws our way. Like I was married at 21, divorced at 22. On paper, it was so logical. It made so much sense. It didn't work. This situation on paper, so messy, like not logical. Like, really, are you sure? Are you just this lovesick girl that like, whatever, oblivious, you know, really subservient to your part? Nope, none of that. Certainty. What I had was certainty, and it was like spiritually, divinely guided, because when we would question, does this mean we go separate ways? What does our future look like? Is that together or apart? My guidance was very, very clear spiritually to do my inner work. And as I did, you know, the mindset shifted. The things I always thought like were so important to me actually weren't as important as other things, you know, truer truths that I claimed throughout this process and letting go of the old. And so we got married in December. Very, very small. It was during the horrible, horrible, horrible storm. Do you remember the negative 40-degree day?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the day that Janessa gets married. And it was like the fourth location because of all of the changes. Like, we're going to get married outside at a lake. Like, it's December in Nebraska. It's a roll of the dice. Like, the weekend before was 50 degrees. Would have been freaking beautiful.
I mean, you're not wrong though, because I had a friend get married December 29th and it was fairly nice out. I got married April 27th. It was like 80 degrees. And then 1 week later, it snowed on May 4th. So you're not wrong on rolling the dice. But of course, you get married on the most frigid day.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to point out, so I just looked up 111, the meaning of 111.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, because what it means is to take chances and try out new things. And it's like both of you are taking this incredible risk, you know, him trusting that even though this is wrong and this doesn't feel right, it's the path. And you trusting that you can speak out and you can share your story, and it says be a yes person, so to speak. The green light associated with angel number 111 reminds us to not overthink things. If you are seeing a lot of 111, take a chance and go for it. And I don't know, we had a numerologist come and talk, and
Dana, she's great.
Oh yeah.
Isn't she great?
She's so good. I love numbers. I love the unspoken language within the universe, and everything has significance.
For sure.
Negative 40-degree day. Like, it doesn't matter how cold it is, you guys can still fucking survive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we found a location that wouldn't close with the school system, because that also happened. And the family drove in from Northeast Nebraska, like, ride or die, we're going to be there for this union, which is cool. And then some people just joined on Zoom because we're living in 2022. But we exchanged vows and got married. I did want to just also mention the 111, like relevant to the day he went into prison, right? But also my birthday, 11/1. And then I was born at 11/41, like the number of ones in my life in the birth year also, which I'm not going to actually reveal here for people to get on the internet, but ones, we've got some ones going on. So
I love that, because I'm 11/18/81. So I like ones a lot as well. So I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, he has now served almost 5 months, not quite, of his sentence. And we're just really looking forward to the day that he comes back home and we can carry on with life. And in the meantime, just wanting to, there's so many amazing wisdom drops from this story that I just want to imbibe people with the hope of what life can really truly be like, even though it's hard and it feels ugly, but there's so much awe and amazingness and beauty and amongst the raw bullshit that we go through. And to not, not give up hope. And our mind is so powerful when we know how to work with the energetics and the spirit to get our emotions and everything on board. Like, we as humans have so much programmability, and why not use that to our own advantage versus staring at the TV, zoning out, and having our brains programmed into whatever nonsense they want us to believe through the stuff that they run through advertising.
As we're all watching this on YouTube and believing what we are sharing.
Yeah, but I'm telling you to believe whatever is right for you and find your own truth. I'm not telling you what to believe, but I love the point. Yeah, like touche, right?
I'm just completely messing with you. But yeah, that is the power within it, is believe what you want to believe. And you had to go through that, like literally step by step, figuring out what it was you believed.
For sure.
That's hard.
And
somehow feeling confident in your decision and trusting, whether it's trustworthy or not, whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. It was your truth and you found what felt right for you on a soul level. And that's fucking huge. That's so empowering.
Incredibly. Yeah. I also feel like there's a really beautiful relationship story here as well. I don't know with your clients what you see and work with, but so many people attach pain and torture and agony to relationships, and that is just going to be a source of something that beats them up. And they're the greatest opportunity for healing, really. I could have taken that perspective with this relationship too and been like, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that could ever walk into my life, and walked away and started over and lived the same patterns, because my pattern was to walk away. And when I finally broke that pattern and I showed up like unconditionally for him, but also aligned with my values of like, I believe in him. I'm not just showing up with him out of obligation. I'm not showing up for him because, wow, this is the hardest time of his life and what a shitty time to walk away from someone. Like, I'm showing up for him because it's aligned for me and it's who I want to be. And if I want compassion and forgiveness and understanding and unconditional love from someone else, well, I better start also contributing to the cause, because the longer I love conditionally while expecting to get unconditional love, that is never going to happen. And through that, like my own inner work and my own inner healing, all of that happened. And I'm like, relationships are so beautiful. Like, everyone should have this empowering, amazing relationship and be with a partner who brings out the best in them or gets them, supports them, gives them room to spread their wings, to grow, to do all the things. Like, this isn't actually a fairy tale. It's real life. It's real life. It might not start there, but you can transform it to be that.
You're willing to go through that darkness. And that's the scary part for people, is that darkness. Of course, as Scorpios, we're like, what? Dark? Let's dive down deep. Let's dive down as deep as we can. Then let's rip out the roots, right? But not everybody is as comfortable with that. But I just think about your life, and I love looking at how our life sets us up for those incredible, powerful lessons that then set up our soul work and our fucking mission. And I just see, like, here you are with this education, and you're already in that, like, that system of FBI and corrections and all of that. And you meet your partner who's not in that at all. And it like sets you up already for staying within this, because it's a part of who you already are, plus your partner. So it prevents you from almost leaving and sitting within that gunk, that ickiness, which then sets your path for wanting to like support other people and stand up for them and letting them know what they should and shouldn't do and what they should and shouldn't believe, and empowering them moving forward. And that's just incredible to me. I love the whole thing.
Yeah. Pain to purpose. Like, we can sit in that pain and let us shrink us and limit us and change us in a way that hardens us and takes away life, or we can transmute it and transform it and step into our purpose and let it be the greatest gift that we have to give to others. And I choose the latter.
oh my God, it's like your negative 40-degree marriage. Like if you think about pain as purpose, right? A tree blooms and it thrives in the summertime, and then in the wintertime it has to die in order to be reborn every year. It's that cycle. It's like your relationship had to hit that really, 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 really low in order to be reborn on 111 and do new things. I love this so much for you.
Thank
Janessa,
you.
yay.
Yeah, good things are to come. We have a lot of faith in that. Also, not sugarcoating, this is really hard. Like if you haven't heard me say that the first 65 times in this interview, but leaning in full faith that there are really, really, really good things to come on the other side of this. So I'm excited for the future.
I'm proud of you. What's your partner's name?
Travis.
Oh yeah, you said Travis, because Travis is a very common name. When you talk to him, let him know that we are very grateful for the vulnerability that he's willing to share through you, because I can only assume that you've spoken to him and asked him if it's okay. And I want to acknowledge that as well, because it's very difficult to share our own stories and to have our stories out there. And he's allowing you to do that in order to help others. And that's huge. So I would like to just let him know that I'm very grateful for that.
I would be so thrilled to tell him. I wrote a lot before he left, and he read everything and didn't edit much of anything. Like he is such an amazing human that he was, it's our story, but there's some really personal details about him in that. And he's like, the world needs to know. So here we are.
So we're gonna do our mugs really quick. Did you bring a mug to the podcast?
I have a mug, babes.
Yay.
I am so proud of you.
What's yours?
Oh, today will be magical.
It's a unicorn, and on the back side it says believe in yourself.
Okay, so how does that apply to what we talked about?
Honestly, there were days I would take this mug out of the cabinet and I'm like, maybe walking my dog is going to be the magical moment, even though I do that every day, but it's going to be magical. There's going to be a moment in this day, despite whatever I experience that doesn't feel good. And it's going to be the moment that I find peace within myself amongst the storm. And that is my magical. And then, of course, believe in yourself. If I didn't believe in myself, I would have never gotten through this past year.
Love that.
Mine is blessed and coffee obsessed.
Ooh.
So sounds like I don't know how to make this fully relatable, but perhaps just find your blessings in whatever you have around you, whether it's your dark roast and it's your dark days, whether it's your like super fancy days and things are going well, but find your blessings in whatever life happens to throw at you.
Hey, I like how you connected it.
That was
I can
hard.
totally bring that full circle too, because coffee, I had quit drinking coffee before last year happened. And I'm like, if coffee is my crutch, if coffee is my coping mechanism, sign me up. And I'm still drinking coffee today. So coffee obsessed, no eating disorder like in the past, no other horrible coping mechanisms that I used after my divorce, through my divorce, like whatever, like just coffee. Super huge win. Coffee obsessed. Sign me up.
So Greg, I love coffee too.
Yay.
Too much.
Okay, and mine says love you more. And I think that that's very indicative of your and Travis's journey, and how you both had to not only find love for yourself, but you also had to find the love for one another and support each other through this journey and hold space for each other, even though you didn't even quite know how to hold space for yourself. And ultimately leading you both together and stronger and better than ever.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Beautiful tie-in. I love that.
Janessa, thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing your experience. Because again, I know as somebody who shares my own experiences, it's not always easy. once you work through it, it seems like it's easy, but it isn't, because you did all of the work already, and you did it all in a very intense way. So it's not, you didn't get here easy peasy, right? You got here through many tears and many trials. And I'm just so grateful to have shared space with you and to hear your story. And I'm really excited. I would love to have you on with Travis.
Hi.
When he gets out, and just kind of do a check-in and talk about where you're at then, if he's willing, obviously. But I just think that would be so impactful, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you guys for what you're doing for normalizing mental health. It's such a huge part of our everyday life that we like to stigmatize and whatever. I won't even get on the soapbox, but your guys' message is powerful. I love what you're doing. And I'm so honored that I too could share space with you guys and share the story.
Oh, thank you so much. Don't leave yet, but we're going to do our thing. All right. Thank you guys so much for just being a part of this and listening to the powerful story that Janessa and Travis have gone through. And we're just really grateful for each and every one of your stories, and encourage you all to just find the strength and the message within your trials, to find your rebirth, and to just continue to love more through all of it. Thank you so much for your wonderful likes, shares, and subscribes. If you have any questions, comments, concerns for us or for Janessa, please let us know or reach out to her. Her information is in the comments, and just continue to be awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Be here every Wednesday. Bye.
Bye.
If you think we're cool,
Or even if you don't,
please like or subscribe so you'll stay up to date on all things The Shrink Show.
thank you for choosing to spend a portion of your life with us. And remember, don't take yourself too seriously. Life is all a giant shrink show.
A Huda Media Production.
Side effects of listening to this podcast may include side aches or snorting from laughter, impromptu jazz hands, nodding in agreement even though you might be listening alone, an occasional "you said it, girl," and mild cases of existential dread. This podcast is strictly for entertainment and informative purposes only, and is not intended or implied to diagnose, treat, or otherwise substitute for professional mental health, medical, legal, or other advice. Thank you.